The frosty winds of Zix-9 howled across the barren ice plains, their shrill cries a testament to the planet's unforgiving nature. Lieutenant James O'Connell stood at the edge of a vast glacier, his boots crunching into the snow as he surveyed the desolate expanse. Behind him, a sleek coalition transport vessel hummed faintly, its heat shields working overtime to fend off the planet's biting cold. O'Connell's breath fogged up his visor as he turned toward the alien figure beside him. Professor Grintalk, a towering member of the Arctilly species, adjusted his feathered cloak against the cold. His elongated, pale blue face bore an expression of academic smugness, his three eyes narrowing as he delivered the final verdict. Lieutenant O'Connell, Grintalk intoned in his melodious yet clipped tone, you must understand the futility of this endeavor. Humans are ill-equipped for such extreme environments. Without adequate shelter, specifically an igloo, survival is impossible. The alien spectators gathered nearby, a mix of Arctilly, Zeltronians, and a few cautious humans, murmured in agreement. Zix-9 was notorious for its minus 90 degrees Celsius temperatures and unpredictable ice storms. To survive here was not just a challenge, it was a declaration of one's mastery over adversity. O'Connell smirked, his brown eyes gleaming with quiet defiance. Impossible, huh? He adjusted his thermal suit and cracked his knuckles. You're forgetting one thing, Professor. Grintalk tilted his head, his bioluminescent feathers flickering in curiosity. And that is? Humans don't do impossible. We do what needs to be done. The murmurs turned into outright chuckles among the aliens, particularly from the hulking Zeltronian warrior known as Vrax, who crossed his forearms and rumbled, arrogance, typical of their kind. O'Connell ignored him and stepped forward. Here's the deal. I'll survive on Zix-9 for 48 hours. I'll build an igloo, and I won't use any prefab tech. If I fail, you can write me off as just another fragile species. But if I succeed, he pointed at Grintalk, his grin widening, you'll publish a paper about it. You'll tell the whole coalition that humans can handle more than anyone gives us credit for. The crowd erupted into murmurs once more, this time more intrigued than dismissive. Grintalk hesitated, his feathers dimming slightly as he considered the wager. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Lieutenant, but know this. I am agreeing only because I enjoy empirical demonstrations of failure. Then watch and learn, O'Connell replied, already scanning the horizon for suitable snow. The ice planet's wrath as the transport vessel lifted off, leaving O'Connell alone in the frigid wilderness. The full weight of the challenge set in. The cold seeped through even his advanced thermal suit, numbing his fingers despite the heated gloves. His HUD pinged warnings of falling temperatures and a brewing storm on the horizon. But O'Connell didn't panic. He pulled out his multi-tool and began assessing the snow around him. Years of survival training kicked in, and he worked with methodical precision, carving blocks of compact snow and stacking them in a circular pattern. From the observation deck aboard the coalition ship orbiting above, Grintalk and a handful of other aliens watched the humans' progress with keen interest. He's expending far too much energy, Vrax grunted. The fool will tire before the structure is complete. Grintalk nodded in agreement. Typical human short-sightedness. They rely too heavily on brute force. Yet as the hours ticked by, O'Connell defied their expectations. He adjusted his technique, conserving energy while maintaining steady progress. He hummed an old Earth tune as he worked, a habit that had carried him through countless missions. Not bad for a fragile species, he muttered to himself, shaping the snow blocks into a dome. His body screamed for rest, but he pressed on, knowing the storm was only hours away. The storm. By the time the blizzard hit, O'Connell had completed the igloo. He crawled inside, sealing the entrance with a carefully carved snow block. The interior was cramped but insulated, the temperature rising just enough to keep him alive. Outside, the storm raged, its icy winds battering the fragile structure. The aliens aboard the ship monitored his vitals with growing fascination. Remarkable, Grintalk admitted reluctantly as O'Connell's heart rate stabilized. He's adapting. Victory in the ice. When the storm subsided 2 days later, O'Connell emerged from his igloo, frost clinging to his suit but a triumphant grin plastered across his face. Grintalk and the others descended to the surface, their expressions ranging from disbelief to grudging admiration. "I believe this proves my point," O'Connell said, brushing snow off his shoulder. Grintalk sighed, his feathers glowing faintly. "It appears I must reconsider my thesis on human limitations." "That's the spirit," O'Connell quipped. "Next time, maybe I'll show you how to start a fire without matches." The mission on RX-479. The icy plains of Zix-9 were barely a memory before Lieutenant James O'Connell found himself preparing for his next challenge. The Coalition Council, intrigued and perhaps a little embarrassed by his success, had decided to assign him to an even more treacherous mission. This time, it wasn't a test of one man's resilience but a joint survival exercise meant to foster unity between humans and aliens. The planet in question, ERX-479, was a stark contrast to Zix-9. Known for its relentless volcanic activity, acid rainstorms, and a surface temperature hot enough to sear unprotected skin in seconds, RX-479 was a hellscape that no species willingly visited. The team assembles O'Connell entered the briefing room aboard the Coalition starship Veritas, where a hologram of RX-479's molten surface rotated ominously. Around the table sat his new team, a mix of humans and aliens, each with their own strengths, prejudices, and doubts about the mission. Professor Grintalk, now officially part of the team to observe and record the mission's results, nodded curtly as O'Connell took his seat. "You seem unusually confident for someone facing certain doom," said Vrax, the Zeltronian warrior who had mocked O'Connell back on Zix-9. His forearms were crossed, and his leathery skin glistened under the room's lights. "Let's just say I'm used to proving people wrong," O'Connell replied smoothly. Beside him sat Dr. Ilara Finch, a human xenobiologist with a reputation for being as brilliant as she was blunt. She shot O'Connell a wary glance. "Let's hope your bravado doesn't get us all killed." Completing the team were Sithra, a Larakian engineer whose species thrived in high-gravity environments, and Kelbrix, an insectoid scientist from the Krelak species whose chittering mandibles were a constant reminder of the alien diversity within the Coalition. "Enough chatter," Captain Talarn, a stoic Arctilly officer, cut in. "RX-479 awaits. Your mission is simple. Survive for 72 hours and establish a functioning shelter that can withstand the planet's hostile environment. This is a test of survival, yes, but also of teamwork. Failure will reflect poorly on all of you, especially humanity." Arrival on RX-479. The descent onto RX-479 was rough. The ship's shields crackled as superheated winds battered the hull. As the landing ramp extended, a wave of sulfurous heat slammed into the team. Even with their advanced suits, the heat was suffocating. The terrain was a nightmare. Rivers of molten lava snaked through jagged black rock, and geysers of boiling steam erupted unpredictably. The air was thick with ash, and the sky glowed an eerie orange. "Well, isn't this cozy?" O'Connell muttered, earning a snort from Ilara. The team quickly unloaded their equipment: thermal-resistant plating, portable cooling units, and a rudimentary shelter framework. It wasn't enough to simply survive. They had to build something that could endure the planet's wrath. Building the shelter, O'Connell took charge, his voice steady and authoritative. "All right, folks, let's get to work. Sithra, focus on anchoring the shelter to the rock bed. Kelbrix, calibrate the cooling units to counteract the heat. Ilara, you're with me on resource collection." Vrax bristled. "And what about me?" "You're muscle, right?" O'Connell said with a grin. "Help Sithra secure the framework. Unless you're afraid of breaking a sweat." The Zeltronian growled but complied, his massive frame hauling the heavy plating with ease. As the hours wore on, tensions flared. Kelbrix and Sithra clashed over engineering specifics. Vrax questioned O'Connell's leadership, and even Ilara seemed skeptical of their odds. "This isn't Zix-9, she snapped at O'Connell during a brief water break. "You can't just brute force your way through this." "No," he replied evenly, "but we're not going to make it if we keep second-guessing each other. Trust me, Ilara. We've got this." The thermal surge crisis. Just as the shelter neared completion, the ground began to tremble. "Seismic activity detected," Kelbris chirped, his mandibles clicking in alarm. A massive fissure opened nearby, spewing molten lava that threatened to engulf their location. At the same time, a wave of blistering heat surged toward them, frying one of the cooling units. "Move! Move! Move!" O'Connell shouted, rallying the team. Sithra and Vrax worked frantically to stabilize the shelter's foundation while Kelbrix and Alara scrambled to repair the cooling system. O'Connell grabbed an emergency coolant tank and ran toward the failing unit, ignoring the heat warnings blaring in his helmet. "You're insane!" Alara yelled after him. "Maybe," he shouted back, "but I'm still alive." With a hiss, he released the coolant into the unit, stabilizing it just as the thermal surge hit. The shelter held firm, and the team huddled inside as the temperature outside reached deadly levels. Camaraderie forged in fire. The crisis forced the team to set aside their differences. As they worked together to reinforce the shelter and ration supplies, a sense of camaraderie began to form. "You're not as useless as I thought," Vrax admitted grudgingly. "And you're not as much of a jerk as I thought," O'Connell shot back with a grin. Even Grintalk, who had been largely silent, seemed impressed. "Lieutenant, your resourcefulness is noteworthy." "That's high praise coming from you, Professor," O'Connell quipped. The extraction. When the 72 hours finally ended, the team emerged from the shelter, exhausted but triumphant. The Coalition extraction ship arrived to take them back to the station, where their survival feat was met with astonishment. "You did it," Alara said quietly to O'Connell as they boarded. "No," he corrected, glancing at the team. "We did it." Concluding reflections, back aboard the Veritas, the team shared a quiet meal, their bond forged in the crucible of RX-479's hellish environment. Grintalk was already drafting a report, his feathers glowing with newfound respect for humanity. "Humans," he mused aloud, "are more resilient than I ever imagined." "And more stubborn," Vrax added with a chuckle. O'Connell raised his glass. "Here's to surviving the impossible. Together." As the others toasted, the faint glimmer of mutual respect shone between the species. Humanity had taken another step toward proving its place in the Coalition, not just as survivors, but as leaders. The ripples of RX-479. The mission on RX-479 had come to an end, but the aftershocks of its success rippled far beyond the planet's molten surface. The Coalition Council, skeptical of humanity's inclusion in the Alliance just weeks prior, now found itself rethinking its stance. Reports of Lieutenant James O'Connell's leadership and the team's unexpected camaraderie spread quickly, fueling debates and shifting long-held perceptions. The Coalition Council debriefed seated in the grand amphitheater of the Coalition Station. O'Connell found himself under the piercing gaze of dozens of alien representatives. The room was a swirl of species: the multi-limbed Zeltronians, the feathered Arctilli, the crystalline Shalax, and countless others. At the center of the chamber stood Director Valarn, an austere figure with scales that shimmered with authority. "Lieutenant O'Connell," Valarn began, his voice echoing in the vast hall, "your actions on RX-479 were unexpected. We expected a survival exercise. What we witnessed was a lesson in unity." O'Connell stood tall, his posture relaxed but respectful. "With all due respect, Director, unity is how humanity survives. We've been fighting the odds since we first looked up at the stars." A murmur spread through the assembly, some approving, others skeptical. Professor Grintalk stepped forward, his feathers bright with pride. "It is true, I observed firsthand the human capacity for adaptability, ingenuity, and leadership. Their resilience is not simply physical, it is a deep-rooted defiance of failure." A skeptical voice interrupted, sharp and dismissive. "Resilience is admirable, but does it make them fit to lead?" It was Senator Krixar, a reptilian Krelthar, who had long opposed humanity's full membership in the Coalition. O'Connell turned to face the senator, his eyes steady. "Leadership isn't about strength or technology, Senator. It's about bringing people, or species, together. And if RX-479 proved anything, it's that we can lead when it counts. New challenges and new allies." With the debrief concluded, O'Connell returned to his quarters aboard the Veritas, only to find a message waiting for him. The Coalition had approved a new mission, a joint exploration of Delta Mu 14, a distant planet shrouded in mystery and rumored to harbor ancient ruins. This time, the stakes were higher. It wasn't just survival, it was discovery. The team composition remained largely the same, with the addition of two new members. Captain Drena Velos, a taciturn Phyrexian with unmatched tactical skills and a reputation for being difficult to work with. Otho, a massive quadrupedal Borkian biologist whose species was known for their immense strength and surprisingly gentle demeanor. The challenge wasn't just the planet, it was the delicate balance of egos and cultural clashes within the team. The journey to Delta Mu 14. The Veritas cut through hyperspace, its sleek hull glowing faintly with the energy of its warp engines. In the common area, the team gathered for a preliminary briefing. Grintalk projected a hologram of Delta Mu 14, its surface a patchwork of dense jungles, barren deserts, and glimmering oceans. This mission, Grintalk explained, is as much about diplomacy as it is about exploration. The ruins here could hold artifacts predating even the Coalition's founding. Collaboration will be key. Collaboration, Captain Drena muttered, her sharp feline features betraying her doubt. We'll see how long that lasts. O'Connell leaned forward, meeting her gaze. It'll last as long as it needs to. We've already survived worse together. The room fell silent. O'Connell's quiet confidence a steadying presence. Delta Mu 14, a world of secrets. The planet was as breathtaking as it was dangerous. Towering trees stretched skyward, their bark glowing faintly with bioluminescence. The air was thick with humidity, the distant cries of alien creatures a constant reminder of the untamed wilderness. O'Connell led the team through the jungle, their path illuminated by the soft light of the foliage. Vrax took point, his brute strength clearing obstacles with ease, while Sithra and Otho analyzed the terrain for potential hazards. Anyone else getting the feeling we're being watched? Ilara muttered, her hand hovering near her sidearm. Kelbrix's mandibles clicked nervously. Unlikely. Most predators would avoid a group this size, though there are exceptions. Hours into their trek, they stumbled upon the ruins, a sprawling complex of towering spires and intricate carvings, half buried in the jungle. The air felt charged, as if the very stones hummed with latent energy. This is incredible, Grintalk whispered, his feathers glowing brightly. These inscriptions, they predate known history. As the team began to explore, the ground beneath them trembled. A low rumble echoed through the ruins, followed by a sudden burst of movement. From the shadows emerged a group of alien creatures, sleek, quadrupedal hunters with razor-sharp claws and glowing eyes. Contact, Drena barked, drawing her weapon. The battle for survival. The team scrambled for cover as the creatures attacked, their movements swift and coordinated. O'Connell barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. Vrax, flank them. Ilara, cover Kelbrix while he sets up the drone. Sithra, secure our retreat. The fight was brutal. Drena's precision shots took down several attackers, while Otho used his immense strength to shield Grintalk and Ilara. O'Connell himself fought with calculated aggression, using his surroundings to outmaneuver the creatures. But it was teamwork that turned the tide. Kelbrix's drone emitted a high-frequency pulse, disorienting the attackers long enough for the team to regroup and retreat deeper into the ruins. Unity in the face of adversity. As they reached a secure chamber within the ruins, the team collapsed in exhaustion. Despite their differences, they had fought as one. Drena, still catching her breath, gave O'Connell a nod. You're better than I expected, Lieutenant. I'll give you that. O'Connell grinned. I'll take that as a compliment. Grintalk, studying the chamber's carvings, turned to the team. We've only just begun to uncover this planet's secrets, but one thing is clear. No species can unlock these mysteries alone. O'Connell looked around at his team, humans and aliens alike, and felt a surge of pride. Good thing we've got each other then. Secrets of Delta. Mu 14. The ruins of Delta Mu 14 were unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Their intricate carvings glowed faintly in the dim light, and the walls seemed to hum with energy as if they housed a living force. The team's escape from the alien predators had brought them to the heart of the complex, a vast chamber filled with towering obelisks and an enormous crystalline structure at its center. This, Grintalk murmured, his feathers vibrating with excitement, is a discovery that could rewrite history. O'Connell scanned the room, his instincts on high alert. The crystalline structure pulsed with light, almost as if it were alive. He turned to Kelbrix. What do you make of it? The insectoid scientist's mandibles clicked thoughtfully as he approached the obelisk, scanning it with a handheld device. Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this is, it's ancient and powerful. The chamber awakens. As the team investigated the chamber, O'Connell's comm crackled. Movement outside, Drenna reported tersely from her position near the entrance. Looks like the creatures are regrouping. We need to hurry, O'Connell said. Grintalk nodded, his attention focused on deciphering the carvings. This appears to be some kind of archive. The inscriptions speak of an ancient species, the Erythians, who once ruled this galaxy. They warn of catastrophic consequences should their technology be mishandled. That's comforting, Ilara muttered, her eyes flicking toward the glowing crystal. Before anyone could react, the chamber trembled, and the crystalline structure emitted a sharp pulse of light. The team was thrown back as the room filled with a low, resonant hum. What the hell just happened? Vrax growled, pushing himself to his feet. Kelbrix's antennae twitched wildly. The crystal is reacting to us. It's waking up. The predators outside began to howl, their cries reverberating through the ruins. The final stand. As the crystal's hum grew louder, the predators attacked, pouring into the chamber in a frenzy. Hold the line! O'Connell barked, rallying the team. Vrax and Otho took the front, their combined strength holding back the tide of creatures. Drenna's precise shots took down attackers with deadly efficiency, while Ilara and Sithra worked to stabilize the crystal, which was now emitting erratic pulses of energy. Grintalk shouted over the chaos, his voice tinged with both fear and awe. We must not let the crystal overload. It could destroy the entire planet. O'Connell grimaced, his mind racing. Kelbrix, can you shut it down? The insectoid hesitated. I can try, but I'll need time. Then we'll buy you time, O'Connell said, gripping his weapon tightly. A dangerous gamble. As the team fought valiantly, the crystal's energy reached a crescendo, its pulses growing more intense. Kelbrix worked frantically, his claws flying across the crystal's surface as he attempted to stabilize it. We're running out of time, Ilara yelled, her voice tinged with desperation. O'Connell made a snap decision. Kelbrix, redirect the energy into the obelisks. If we can channel it away from the crystal, it might stabilize. That's a massive gamble, Kelbrix replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. It's either that or we all go up in flames. Kelbrix nodded, his determination overriding his fear. With O'Connell's help, he reprogrammed the crystal's energy flow. The obelisk began to glow brightly, absorbing the excess energy and stabilizing the chamber. The remaining predators, disoriented by the light, retreated back into the jungle. Unity and triumph. As the room quieted, the crystal pulsed softly, its dangerous energy now under control. The team collapsed in exhaustion, their faces reflecting a mix of relief and awe. Grintalk approached the crystal, his feathers glowing faintly. We've not only survived, we've preserved something extraordinary. This archive could hold the key to understanding our galaxy's past. O'Connell looked around at his team, pride swelling in his chest. We did it because we worked together. No one species could have pulled this off. Drenna smirked. You're not as bad as I thought, O'Connell. High praise, he replied with a grin. The return to the Coalition. The Veritas returned to the Coalition's station with the crystal safely secured in its cargo hold. News of the team's success spread quickly, earning them recognition across the Coalition. Grintalk presented his findings to the Council, emphasizing the importance of unity in facing the galaxy's greatest challenges. This mission proved one thing above all: humanity's potential lies not just in their resilience, but in their ability to inspire cooperation. Legacy of the mission. O'Connell's leadership earned him a permanent place on the Coalition's Exploratory Division, tasked with leading joint missions into uncharted territories. His actions not only solidified humanity's reputation, but also strengthened the bonds between species that had once viewed each other with suspicion. As he stood in the observation deck of the Veritas, gazing out at the stars, Alara joined him. "You think the Coalition's ready for more missions like this?" she asked. "They better be," O'Connell replied with a smile, "because humanity's just getting started." Together, they watched as the ship slipped into hyperspace, carrying them toward the next great unknown.